In today's video, I'm going to be taking you behind the scenes in my studio of how I took this shot of Forest Gin. So welcome to the studio. It's the first time I think I've done an actual product photography shoot in my studio on video. So I'm very excited to take you through some of the workflow. I'm going to be showing you how I've set the shot up, how I take the photo, what I keep in mind, and then we're going to go and take that into Photoshop and show how I do some of the post-production. Now, this shot is a 3-light setup, 2 lights either side of the bottle and a background light. It's fairly standard stuff. We're not doing anything super creative here. The idea is just showing you how you can get a really nice clean shot, potentially just for something like a product gallery online or in a magazine, something like that. It's not about high-end creative photography. It's about just getting a nice clean shot which basically shows the product off in a nice way. The product that I've chosen to do, I'll ruin my own setup for a moment, is Forest Gin. This is a really nice gin actually that's from an area of the UK called Macclesfield. I love the gin, but more importantly I really love the bottle. It's this screen printed bottle. It's got this really nice pattern on it. It's this old style ceramic bottle with a proper cork in the top. I've always really liked this bottle, and I was thinking of what can I do just to experiment in the studio a little bit, do a video on. And basically I raided my gin collection and decided that this one would be a good one to use. So here we are. Step one, when you're doing any product photography, is super obvious maybe. Clean your product. This had got a few marks on it because it's probably about a year old, and it had been packed up when I moved house up to Edinburgh, so there was quite a few marks on it. So I spent a little bit of time just with a damp cloth, giving it a wipe down. Whatever you're taking photos of, if you're doing product photography, it needs to be clean. Like, you need to make sure that there is no dirt on it, no specks of anything. And yeah, you can do a lot of that in Photoshop. You can go in and really take out any tiny bits of dust using the various tools in the software. But it's so much easier if you're starting off with a clean product. So spending just a few minutes in giving that a nice wipe down in the first place is just going to translate to a much easier edit afterwards. So let's just actually take a quick look at my setup. Basically what I've got a black board as my base, which I've got propped up on my boxes, and I've just got the grey paper background. I've already done some tweaking of this setup purely because actually doing a product setup involves a lot of fine-tuning, which I'll talk about. So I just wanted to kind of get ahead of that a little bit and just make a start in setting things up. We've got 2 main lights, one on either side. Both of these are my Godox AD200s. Now, these are quite small strobes. They're a bit more like speed lights. But they've got a lot more power, but importantly they're not quite as big as my main studio strobes, so I can fit them in very nicely because I don't have a whole load of room on here. It's exactly the same on the other side, but crucially you can see I've got these 2 strip box modifiers on them. These are tall and thin, and that's great because that's basically the same shape as the bottle. It's tall and it's thin, so this light will cast very evenly all the way down the bottle. You don't need a big wide softbox, so having strip boxes either side like this is ideal. But crucially as well, what you can see on the front is the grid. Now, lighting grids basically stops the light spreading out. So instead of having a modifier where it goes poof and goes everywhere, all over the place, the grid just helps focus that light. And of course it's focusing on the bottle. What that does is stop a lot of that light spilling onto the background. But we'll come into that in a little bit more detail in a moment when we start taking the shots. So the shot that I'm going for is a pretty standard view of the bottle. As I say, we're not trying to do anything super creative with lighting in this shot. We just want to get a really nice shot of the bottle. So we are going, as you can see here, for basically a straight on view with the bottle right in the middle of the frame. Now, it's good to have a bottle sometimes right in the middle of the frame, because if you're selling this image to editorial or for advertising, that gives a lot of room around the bottle for the image to be cropped and for text or brand logos to be put in. So it's always worth leaving a lot of empty space around the product for that reason. If we just turn on live view on the camera, we can see that I have got it quite zoomed in, because I want the bottle to be still as filling the top and bottom of the frame as much as possible. Lens-wise, I am just using the 24 to 105 f4 lens, largely because it's slightly wider. I think I'm using this at about 55 mil or something like that, because again, don't have tons of space here. I'm using like a 100 mil macro, which would be my normal product lens. It's not giving me enough. It would be too zoomed in. I couldn't get the whole bottle in. So as with any studio photography, the first thing I want to do is make sure that none of the ambient light in the room is appearing in the shot. So what I do to take a quick shot without the lights turned on, and we want it to be basically black. In fact, we do want it to be black, and it sort of is. If we have a look at that shot, which I'll put on screen now, the bottle is there, but not a lot of the light is really coming into play. Now, I could turn down, I won't turn these lights off just because you need them to see me, but if I turn that down a bit, turn off this overhead, I'm still sort of visible, and I'll turn this one down as well. Okay, and that is probably going to be ending up ramping up. No, just makes me look a little bit dark, but I think we're okay for now. So if I take that shot again now, yeah, then we are almost completely black. If I look very carefully, there's a very, very, very faint hint of that bottle, but I don't mind that so much. We're starting off on a good point. What it means having that blank image to start with is that any light that you can see in the shot when I take them, I know is light that I have put in there. It's one of my lights, light in the product, or it's my background light. There's nothing else affecting it, so I know that I've got complete control. That's a really, really good way of working. So let's start by turning on these lights one by one, and I can just take you through how I've built the light up into the shot that we're going to be going for. So we'll start by turning on just our background light. Now, I didn't mention the background light before, but I've got another AD200 just on the floor and a small light stand behind, pointing up at the background, just to give a little halo of light behind the product, which just helps give that separation and just adds a little bit more life to the image. But I've also popped a grid on that to control the spread of light, and I've also put a gel on it just to give it a little splash of color, just makes a shot a little bit more interesting. So we'll start off by taking a shot. So you can see here, the only light you're seeing now is that background light. You can very clearly see the silhouette of the bottle itself. That light just creeps over the tabletop just like a horizon, which I think looks really, really nice. It's a good start, and obviously we're not seeing any extra light falling on the bottle from that light or from our ambient video lights. So we know that we can just build those up step by step without them affecting each other. So let's go ahead and we'll turn on light B, coming in from the left. So again, as you can see, now we've just got the left hand side of the bottle coming into light. If we have a little zoom in, we can see that there is a nice highlight running down the side of the bottle all the way up to the cork. And again, we're not seeing any particularly bad spill on the background light or too much on the table surface that the bottle is on. Let's bring in light A now. Pop, and then basically those two lights are designed to very much mirror each other, and so we've got a very, very even shot of the bottle being very nicely lit from both sides. You've got that highlight running down both sides of the bottle, and I think it was just a really, really nice clean shot. As I was saying, this took quite a bit of playing around just to make sure that the light was exactly as I wanted it. Just playing around with these strip boxes, getting them in the right position. When it comes to product photography, it's very much about those little fine tweaks that you might not think would make a lot of difference, but actually makes a huge amount of difference. Even turning this light slightly inwards or slightly outwards made a huge amount of difference, because it was affecting where that light was going. If it was turned inwards more towards the product, too much of a light would spill on the background and that background color we're going for would look washed out. But by putting on the grids and actually angling it slightly away from the background, a little bit more towards the camera, what happens is that you get no spill on the background, the bottle still gets lit perfectly, and it means that the background is left just for that purple light, so it stands out a lot more. But the reason I did that off camera is because that sort of fine tuning, particularly if you're doing a more creative shot where you're less familiar with the setup, that can be a process that could take hours, and it's literally just a case of putting in a light, fine tuning where you want it to be, taking a shot, having a look, seeing what it looks like, analyzing where that light is falling, and just fiddling around. And you can take many shots just trying tiny little tweaks, changing the modifiers, maybe changing from being a big strip box to maybe a soft box or something else, just to see what the quality of light looks like, how it falls on your product. And sometimes I make it sound like it's a real chore, and it's not. It's actually really fun doing that, because by trying something else and just tweaking the light, you might actually find by accident that you get a really interesting style of lighting that you didn't actually intend to get in the first place, but it looks really cool. So you can stumble on and have those happy accidents, as I think Bob Ross might have called them. So it's it's really fun way of working. So, but I did do that tweaking a little bit before. I did change the modifiers. I had very different ones on before, but these strip boxes have worked well. Basically, having got all the lights on and in place, I'm really happy with how the shot is looking. So actually taking the shot itself, as you saw, I've got the camera set up on my tripod exactly where I want it. I've got the bottle framed up nicely. I've made sure that the camera is absolutely dead straight on with the table surface that I'm on, and also with the bottle itself, because sure, you can tweak the level, but if your camera isn't exactly level with the bottle itself, and when you tweak those, the proportions are going to be off. And you can try and mess around with Photoshop and correct that, but it's just better if you spend the time making sure that everything is lined up absolutely perfectly. But now we've got that, I make sure that my lens is in manual focus, I zoom in on the back of camera, and I double check that my focus is absolutely spot on, which I think it is. My settings for this shot is f8, which is going to give me the maximum sharpness for this lens, 200th of a second shutter speed, which is, as I said before, killing a lot of this ambient light, and ISO 100, the lowest ISO that this camera can go, again, to have the maximum quality. Now, I was thinking whether or not I'd need to focus stack this, which is something I think I've talked about in other videos where you want to have that front to back sharpness, but because this bottle, there's not a lot of depth to it, the only thing was maybe be the cork at the top is slightly further away from the front of the bottle, but at f8 I don't think that's going to be much of a problem. I will take a extra shot of the cork in focus as well, just in case we do want to blend that in, but I'm not sure it's going to be entirely necessary. But now we've got it in place, the focus is spot on, we're going to take our shot, and it looks really good. I'm really happy. I zoom in and everything is pin sharp, everything looks good, the lighting looks great. More importantly, the lighting looks even. Crucially, what you don't want to do is have lights on either side where one is half as powerful as the other, and your lighting's all wrong, because then one side of the bottle will be sort of more in shadow. This way, you've got a really nice even lighting on both sides. Unless, of course, you're going for a particular lighting style, you're going for maybe a slightly more dramatic look with maybe even just one light. You know, this is not the right way to do product shots. This is a way to do product shots. The beauty of doing any kind of photography is that you can mess about, try different styles, see what works. But I'm really happy with this shot. I might just take another couple, but otherwise I think I'm happy. Just while I'm thinking about it, I'm going to zoom in right on that cork even more. I'm just going to tweak my focus so that that is the focus. Take another shot, And there we go, just in case we wanted to do that. But I don't think we do, because even having focus on the cork and then looking at the bottle, that still looks pin sharp there. So I don't really think we're going to need to do focus stacking, but got it in case we want to. I'm just going to take another couple, and the last thing I'm going to do as well is just do another one, but in a portrait orientation, just so I've got both formats to work with in post. But otherwise, that is the shot done. There's no more I want to do with the lighting here. There's no more I want to do with the colors. So I think we're just going to take these shots into Photoshop. So here we are over in Lightroom, and let's just have a very quick skip to the end. Here is the finished shot, which I've done. Why is it already done? Well, I promise it's got nothing to do with having just spent the last hour doing a whole edit sequence and everything crashed and I lost all the footage. Oh no, definitely that couldn't have happened, could it? Certainly not. So instead, what I'm going to do, okay, yeah, that totally did happen. Things went wrong. Things really went wrong. Anyway, irrelevant. Here is a shot that we got straight out of camera. The focus stack, which was important to do, because if we take a look very close up on this, one of them, the logo isn't quite sharp, but the bottleneck and cork is. And the other one, the bottleneck and cork is soft, but the logo is sharp. So we can piece those together in Photoshop, or rather, I already have. So what we're going to do is go over into Photoshop, and we're going to take a look. This is the stacked image, which was a very easy way of just going edit, auto align, and then auto blend layers. That'll blend those two together. That means that we get this really nice pin sharp bottle, top to bottom. Looks great. Okay, fit on screen. So what I'm going to do is instead go through and we'll turn on layer by layer what I've done to improve the look of this bottle. So first of all, we can see here these two is just focusing on the cork, very specific. Just brightening it up, adding a little bit of contrast, adding a little bit of saturation to make the orange tones of that natural cork pop out a little bit more. Next layer, dust removal, important. Pay attention to these little tiny spots of annoying light on the top, not the main highlights, the little dots. Ping, they go away, very easy. And again, we can see here, we've got an extra spot here, we've got down here, very close in, just a couple of little bits of dirt. It takes a little bit of time to go around, clicking away with the spot healing brush, getting rid of that dust and dirt, but you have to do it with product photography. You need to make sure that you've got a clean product. And yes, I said earlier about how I clean the bottle down to begin with, but you'll always get some little bits like that. So just spending the time cleaning your product up means you've got a nice clean product to be working from for the rest of your edit. So something you should definitely do first of all. Okay, moving on. If we have a look at these two masks in the bottom right corner, they're bottle shaped. Now what I did is, using the pen tool, I did a whole cutout. So if we go load selection, and I'll just go bottle cutout, immediately comes back into place. You can see I've done this very accurate outline of the bottle. That allows me to apply effects separately to the bottle and to the background, because you don't want to apply one effect to everything. You want to make sure that you're doing it bit by bit. So what I've done, added levels. If we turn it on and off, we can see that that is, oh actually no, that's to the whole image. This is to the whole image. Just brightening up the scene that little bit. Then another levels, and that's brightening the bottle because it was still falling into shadow just a little bit. We want it to pop out of the page. It's the hero of this photo. It needs to stand out, so we've brought the levels up on that as well. I've then brought a hue and saturation adjustment in, and as you can see, I've brought down the saturation by -40. Now the reason is, it's because of the white balance, or maybe some of the like color reflections from in this room. There is a bit of a blue twinge, little bit of a cold tone to this bottle. If we just get the eyedropper tool and on that background, just load that in, you can see that it's up here. We've got this sort of more almost a lilac sort of tone. We don't want that at all. If we bring that hue and saturation back in and select around here, sorry, back on here now, we can see that we're getting a very different tone. There's still a little hint of blue. If you went in and turned that saturation layer all the way down to 0, the bottle looks very, very odd. It isn't completely devoid of colour. It has some colour tone in there. It's important to keep a little bit of that in there. And I felt around, yeah, let's go around minus 50 or so. Looks great. It makes it look much more realistic and makes it look like you haven't just stripped all of the colour out. You just reduced that colour cast. Next up, what on earth was this layer doing? You know what? I no longer remember. Doesn't look like anything. If you're seeing anything pop into life there, then do let me know. Let's leave it on for now. Next up, again, a brightness and contrast. Again, focusing very much on the bottle itself. It's quite a strong adjustment, but you can see when we flick that on and off a difference it makes in bringing out the shadows in the front of the bottle and just making that whole pattern on the front really, really stand out. It's such an amazing pattern, that black and white screen print on there, that you've got to make sure that it really stands out, and that layer does exactly that. We've got another layer, don't know what that's doing. Doesn't seem to be a lot of stuff. This layer is just affecting these reflections on the top. You do want those reflections. If you got rid of the reflections on the bottle entirely, then it would look like it was a matte bottle and it would look formless. And it isn't. It's a glossy bottle with these really lovely curves, and having those specular highlights around there is what carves out the shape. So we want those. So I've tried to boost those up a little bit. But that has basically brought us to our final image in Photoshop. We saved it. And then we came over here into Lightroom, where I did a couple of extra tweaks. Just bringing up, let's go into the develop tool, we can flip it on and off. I have again just added a little adjustment layer to the middle of the bottle just to help boost that brightness. And I've also slightly shifted the hue of the background into more purple tones, all of which is designed to make the bottle the hero of this picture, to make it really pop off the page and make it look amazing. And I think it does. I think it's great. I love this bottle. It's one of my favorites, even when it will be empty, which it will be at some point. It's still going to sit on my shelf because it looks so great, and also because I cannot afford to buy more of it. It's very, very, very good gin, but it's small batch, and as a result it comes in at a very, very high price, and unfortunately I've got rent to pay instead of gin. But this brings me to the end of this breakdown of the edit. Hopefully that has been really helpful to see how I would go about lighting my studio to get this shot, and then how I would go about doing the edit to get this finished shot here. Hopefully you think it looks good. Crucially, I would make the exact same edits whether I was doing the bottle in portrait orientation or landscape. As you can see, these images are exactly the same. If we flick back and forth, there is no difference in the color balance, the brightness with these images. So whether you did it in portrait or horizontal, you would make the exact same changes and you would still end up with this finished shot. Hopefully though, that has been really helpful. If you have enjoyed this video, do please hit that like button, subscribe if you don't already, and I will see you next time.